Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your place for the most passionate wrestling analysis on the web.
Just turn Roman heel. What is WWE waiting for?
When other wrestling podcasts put you to sleep, you can count on the WWE Podcast to keep you engaged and asking for more.
I've been watching wrestling for over 20 years, and that was one of the best matches I've ever seen.
This is unlike any other wrestling analysis. So without any further delay, let's get the show started right now.
Hey guys, welcome to the WWE Podcast on this Sunday, December 29th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me, and we're going to get to my conversation with Anthony as we talk about everything going on in WWE as best we could. And do we get to everything? No, we don't, because we got in such deep conversations on topics and really take a deep dive in some things for 15, 20 minutes at a time that unless you want a 7-hour podcast, we cannot touch on everything that that's going on in WWE. For example, we didn't discuss Andrade winning the United States Championship from Rey Mysterio at Madison Square Garden. So that was one of the things on my list, but we were running out of time, and I wanted to get to it, but we didn't. And that's the beauty of wrestling, is that there's just so many different things you can talk about and really deep dive into so much stuff. But just so you know, my thoughts on that is, hey, Andrade won the United States Championship. Great. It adds importance to the house shows. It makes you start to feel that, well, anything could happen at any time in WWE. That feeling that's been lost for so long, and they got a long way to go to repair that feeling. But would it have happened had this show not occurred in Madison Square Garden? The answer is probably no, right? And the answer is no. But I do like that. It creates a social media buzz. It gets people talking. It creates relevance to the United States Championship. It makes you go, how are they going to follow up with that on Raw? So many different things. So I like that. So there's my thoughts on that. But Anthony and I cover everything from WrestleMania thoughts on Roman Reigns and The Fiend, that is the presumed match at WrestleMania, to the Rumble, to Becky and Asuka, and what's going on in the women's division on both brands. So much stuff. I think you guys are going to really enjoy the show. Always great to have Anthony on. Great guest. And before, though, as always, guys, hit me up on Twitter at the WWE Podcast. Go to my website at wwepodcast.com. Video will be coming shortly to Patreon at patreon.com/WWE Podcast. And I'm getting kind of my little mini studio set up here in my my humble abode and making sure that everything looks good. And it's easier said than done. Easier said than done for sure. So I'm working on getting that for my patrons over there, and potentially the website for some free video. So again, if you guys want to help out the show, just give me a rating and review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or anywhere that podcasts are available. It is the best way to help out this show, and I want to thank you guys in advance. We recently hit number 12 in the wrestling rankings of shows on Apple Podcasts in terms of wrestling podcasts, so that's pretty damn cool. Trying to crack the top 10. We got so close, but we will get there in 2020, no question about it. So, guys, thanks for making the show a success, and we are just getting started on this damn thing. So, just a little upcoming scheduling change for this coming week, as it is New Year's week. So, pre-Happy New Year's to everybody. But I have a wedding to go to on Tuesday night, New Year's Eve. And I will not be feeling particularly, let's say, peachy on Wednesday morning, because it's going to be a late night with lots of drinks. Let's just put it that way. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to be getting the Raw review on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, you're going to be getting the Wrestling Nostalgia, as well as AEW and NXT. There's going to be a ton of stuff dropping on Thursday and probably Friday. I may stagger one of those shows into Friday, and then, of course, Ashley will be joining me for the Wrestling Week in Review, so to close out the week. Just so you guys get a little bit of a sense of the schedule for this coming week. In short, my Raw review and Wrestling Nostalgia are both going to be delayed by a day. That's, in short, what's going to be happening. So that's what's coming up. And but before we get to my conversation with Anthony, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the show today, and that is the YouTube channel Mr. List. So you guys may or may not know, I am a big a big watcher of alien shows, documentaries, ghosts and monsters, and like Monster Quest, all that kind of stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they have it on the Travel Channel, or Animal Planet or something like that. Well, there's a YouTube channel that I really recommend you guys check out. It's Mr. List. So it's youtube.com/c/Mr. List. And what's on this is top lists of what they believe are real paranormal cryptids, monsters, aliens, all that kind of stuff. So I really would check it out. It's really interesting, guys. If you're into any of that kind of stuff with monsters and paranormal, like I am, and yeah, I may be a nerd, but I don't care. That's the stuff I love, in addition to wrestling, of course. But check out youtube.com and go to the channel Mr. List. It's youtube.com/c/Mr. List, or just do a search for Mr. List on YouTube. So check that out. All right, guys. Well, let's get to my conversation with Anthony. I think you're going to enjoy it. And again, I'll be back on Wednesday with your Raw review, Thursday for Wrestling Nostalgia, and then, of course, AEW NXT coming your way, as well as the Wrestling Weekend review with Ashley this week. So lots of content coming your way as we try to get back to a somewhat normal schedule after all this craziness that are the holidays. So, guys, thanks so much, and enjoy the conversation. I'll be talking to you real soon. All right, guys, welcome to a New Year's Eve show of the WWE podcast, and I'm back on schedule with my co-host Anthony DeMarco today, and we have quite a bit of things to talk about, as every 3 weeks we bring on a new co-host and a rotating cast of characters here. And Anthony, welcome back to the show. I know that you and I have a lot of content to get through today, so looking forward to it. Welcome back.
Good to be back, man. I'm looking to close out 2019 with a bang.
Yeah, I think we will do that. And before we get started, though, because I don't think I gave you the time last, maybe I did or didn't. I felt bad because one of the co-hosts, I didn't give an opportunity to let everyone know what their social media is. So just in case I forget at the end of the show, how can people follow you?
You can follow me at ADeMarco25 on Twitter. That's pretty much the only social media I'm pretty active on.
All right, awesome. All right, so simple. It's either Twitter or nothing. I like it.
Pretty much.
Awesome. All right, well, so I know that you mentioned just before I press record, you said you got some stuff to get off your chest, and I do too, so I will let you lead the conversation for what you want to talk about first. It's up to you right now.
Well, I just want to start off with positives. I really like what they've been doing on Monday Night Raw lately. I found how they had a slow burn heel turn with Seth was epic, right on point. You can tell it's so authentic that it's coming from him. Like a lot of like what he's saying is almost like truth, you know? And then to like form him with the AOP, you know, every good heel needs like a couple of cronies or whatever. And, you know, they've really engaged me in the storyline. And another thing that I've liked about Monday Night Raw is, like, you can tell that some stale characters, they're finally starting to turn them a bit. Like I just mentioned Seth going from biggest babyface in the company to heel. And now you can maybe see the inklings to Samoa Joe babyface turn. And I love Samoa Joe, but there's no question that he was stale as a heel. And then you even see Drew McIntyre, who I find that lately they've been hinting at maybe going down the babyface route with him, and I've been a big proponent of maybe switching Drew. So a lot of positives from Monday Night Raw right now, starting at the top.
Yeah, let's start with the positives because the negatives are easy to hit. So yeah, I mean, really, I got a whole list here that I'm not going to make this a negative show, but let's start with the good stuff. Yes, Monday Night Raw for the last couple of months, like you said, it's been a very nice pacing of the show. Most shows, not every show has been, you know, the 5-star rating. It's been a consistently good to very good show, and sometimes average with a few stinkers, and that's fine. And as you said, this, to me, front and center is the Seth AOP alliance. The way that they've built it, they didn't try to go down or go up a stream against the current, a la Roman Reigns. We all know that's Exhibit A when it comes to why the hell WWE decided not to go with what the audience wanted. And right now we have Seth Rollins, I think, doing some of the best work of his career. And that's a big statement. And I know we're only a few weeks into the heel turn, but this is, I think, Seth heel 2.0
is going to be a much more improved version of Seth Rollins from when he was a heel in the Shield, or when he was with the the Authority. So this is actually really 3.0. And I like how he just feels like he was born to be a heel. I have never, no matter what Seth was doing, I always found myself trying to like him as a babyface and get behind him. Not that I would boo him, I just didn't buy into it. He never connected with me on a babyface level. And when you have to consciously try to engage and get behind a babyface, it's not working. So Seth with the AOP, what they did with Samoa Joe, I love the subtle thing he did on Monday night of after he told Joe, look, Joe, this isn't about you. Just move. We won't, we won't hurt you. Turns his back to Joe and then says under his breath to AOP, finish him. How, that is, those small touches just mean so much, that he's just this cowardly, self-appointed dictator of Monday Night Raw, this self-appointed leader. He's basically just believing he's a leader when no one else does. I love everything about this right now. And Samoa Joe now is obviously a babyface and clearly cleared to return to the ring. I love it. I have nothing bad to say about this angle whatsoever.
Well, because even when Seth had his first major heel run by himself with J&J Security, he was good in that role, but I found it got very old fast, the whininess, and maybe that's how it was about to come off, how it was supposed to come off. But after a short while, I got really aggravated with the character. I found it uninteresting. It just kept having to get refreshened up with Triple H inserting himself into the mix. And I just didn't feel like he was at his peak. And then he came back as the babyface, and it was the same thing. Originally, I was down with it. I liked his initial feud with Triple H leading up to WrestleMania 33. And I just felt that it got old fast again. And even when he had that meteoric rise from late 2018 to early 2019, it just gets old really fast with Seth. But now in this delusional heel role where he's playing off of some real life problems between him and the fans, and I just feel as though he's really in his element as this heel, but thinks he's a good guy, as you mentioned, self-appointed leader. This is the first time in his entire career in WWE where I could say, yep, I think he's perfect in this role, and he's really hit it out of the park.
I mean, I can't say it better. This is Seth Rollins, who he is this character. And yes, J&J Security, when you talk about that, the thing with J&J Security, they were more of just, for lack of a better term, mall cops. They weren't real threats. They were kind of they were annoyances, but they didn't carry that heavy artillery that the AOP do. They just kind of had squirt guns, right? I mean, they helped him occasionally win. They would take the beating, and Seth would escape, by the skin of his teeth. This is a more badass, legitimate Seth Rollins that now has true backup, true heavy hitters behind him to, as he said, drag us with him, whether we like it or not, and drag whoever stands in his way with him. I love everything he does. I mean, he did it to Rey Mysterio a couple of weeks ago on Raw, saying, he looked like he was going to spare Rey Mysterio for giving the lead pipe to Kevin Owens, and he ends up getting beat down by AOP and giving him the stomp. He goes back on his word. He's slimy. But he's also legitimate, and he has back. Everything about this is awesome. His demeanor, his promo, putting it on the fans. All of this is coming from a real, authentic place, and frustration of the fans at Seth, and Seth now giving it back to the fans. As he said, he's pushing back. He's not going to sit back like Roman, who was too cool for school and just was kind of whatever, the fans don't like me. And John Cena kind of embracing it, doing all the positivity things, a rise above hate. This is Seth pushing back. That's what I love. This is Seth Rollins. This is the authentic, true Seth Rollins that I have missed. He is interesting. I look forward to his segment more than anything on Raw right now.
Yeah, well, because that's it. I found when he was babyface, and I said it on this show, it almost seemed like he was becoming a John Cena. He became a very big panderer. And now they've really just done a complete 180, but have played off of that and have acknowledged that, his shtick got old really fast with the fans. And now they're playing off this whole leader thing. But now that I say leader, it brings me to one of the things that has really aggravated me with WWE lately. And it falls strictly on the creative and the writing and who's ever in the commentators' ears about, I don't know why they have to use the phrase locker room leader relentlessly throughout a show. Like, I understand that with this shift to Fox, they're really trying to drive home the fact that it's a simulated sport and it should be on par with football and basketball and what have you. But even in those sports, like, yeah, sure, you have the captains on each team and whatnot, but I don't know why they have to insist so much by referring to who's the locker room leader.
That is an overused phrase, and it probably is because of the whole Fox thing. I'm not sure, but it's overused to the point of I don't know what they're going for there, as if there has to be a locker room leader. Does there really have to be in WWE? I mean, those leaders just come about. Like, a true locker room leader is The Undertaker. I mean, a true locker room leader would have been John Cena when he was there. I mean, those kind of guys come along, but organically. Maybe they're going for, hey, you know, it's like giving yourself a nickname. You can't do it. It just should organically happen. Unless you're Roman Reigns and we'll say Big Dog 6 times in a show, and it still doesn't feel right even after, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, however long they've been saying it. But the other thing I really like about this angle is that, and this is actually something CM Punk said, Paige said on the backstage show, WWE backstage a couple weeks ago, that, the ironic thing is now that he turned bad, the people are going to cheer him. And I said at that time when they said that, I go, no, that's wrong. People are not going to cheer them because there's this narrative in WWE that I'm sure is run through management that trickles down into talent that, once you turn heel, people are going to cheer you because that's just the cool thing to do, is be defiant. And I don't think they get it. No, it's not the cool thing to do. If you're a heel and you're getting cheered, you're being too damn entertaining. And that's the problem is, in 2019, there are no more true heels, or very, very few, that don't go for the cool, entertaining factor. So that's why you're getting cheered as a heel. You're just being too good at your job for being entertaining. True heels want to be truly hated. And I don't think that's that's an element that is in 2019. And Seth, I think, is getting true heel heat. I don't hear people cheering for him. That means he's doing what he should be doing, and that's what I love.
Well, I think the biggest reason why people cheered heels was because the baby faces didn't make you want to root for them. Like, when the Fiend came back, everyone was rooting for the babyface or against the babyface because at the time no one was really down to go get behind the baby faces. Like, the heels as of late over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 years in WWE have been the coolest types of characters. But now with Seth Rollins, you finally see him going up against guys who the fans want to cheer. They want to cheer Kevin Owens. They want to cheer Samoa Joe. And therefore he is going to get true heel heat. You know, when you would have guys like, I don't know, The Fiend going up against a stale character like Finn Balor, obviously Balor's going to get booed out of the SummerSlam building and whatnot. But now you finally have Seth going against guys who the fans have wanted WWE to push for quite some time now. And that's not to say that Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens didn't get their fair shake of TV time over the last number of years. But, you know, it was no secret. Samoa Joe got incredibly stale, and it was criminal how underutilized he's been. Kevin Owens, him too, he had a good heel run as champ a few years back on Monday Night Raw. But even as of late, you know, that Shane McMahon angle really kind of killed him. But now you see them properly pushing the guys who the fans organically got behind, and therefore it's translating well for Seth's heel run.
True. I mean, you have guys that it takes two to tango. You have to have the good with the bad. You have to have good versus evil. You can't have evil fighting nobody that wants to stand up for them and have people that the fans haven't organically gotten behind to have a successful angle. You have to have those individuals, and you pointed two out right there that now are ironically going to be on the same team. I think eventually you'll see, now that the Seth and AOP, I don't know if they'll eventually come up with a faction name, but right now it's Seth and AOP, have now created three enemies, and there's three of them. So I could see a six-man tag of Mysterio and Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe versus Seth and the AOP somewhere down the line. I don't know if that will be at the Rumble. I would probably think no, considering the Royal Rumble match itself would then take out six huge members. But I would see that tag match maybe happening at the final Raw before Royal Rumble. But now that they've created enemies, it's time for the babyfaces to fight back. And as good as Seth and AOP have been, now it's really about the other piece of this, creating these hot babyfaces. They have to work to raise one another, and Seth and AOP have done their job. Now it's going to come a time where, what do we do with Joe? How do the fans react to him? They seem to be sympathetic and behind him. I think he's done a good job on commentary, improving every week. You have Kevin Owens, organically loved by the audience, easily likable. He looks like the common man to some degree. And you have Rey Mysterio, the beloved legend, and all three guys now have a common enemy in Seth and the AOP. So I'm very interested to see how this whole thing plays out.
Yeah, and I feel like Raw needs a good babyface to step up. Like, over the last year or so, it was Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns was on Raw up until a few months ago. You know, AJ Styles recently turned heel. So after that, Finn Balor went back to NXT. So they're really lacking a good top babyface. So, you know, it's there for the taking. You know, other than, I don't even know who you'd classify as the biggest babyface on Raw right now. I guess it would be a toss-up between Kevin Owens and Rey Mysterio. But after that, maybe Randy Orton, but he just turned back as babyface. So, like, this is an opportunity here for WWE to really capitalize on A, Seth's great, the actual heel heat, and two, on the fans' like just organic love for guys like Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens. You know, I don't know how it's going to shake out approaching the Rumble season, because now you also have to factor in Brock Lesnar into the mix. You know, Seth won't be the only true heel or the only top heel on Monday Night Raw approaching WrestleMania. Brock is going to come back in. I still think that a Drew McIntyre babyface turn is something that would pay off in spades. He's another guy that's gotten really stale as a heel. But I mean, either way you shake it right now, you could really capitalize on a vacant position on Raw.
Yes, there's a huge, huge hole for that top spot. And yeah, you could argue it's Kevin Owens. I mean, to some degree, I think it is. Rey Mysterio, though, too. But Rey Mysterio, let's face it, as good as he's been, and as much as we've gotten out of him and WWE's gotten out of him for this run that I never thought they'd get this much length out of, and that's props to Rey Mysterio and WWE for how much they've gotten out of Rey at this stage in his career. The future is not about Rey Mysterio, though. The future is about Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, although Samoa Joe's not a spring chicken either. Those two guys would be, in my eyes, the top two babyfaces if this continues down the road it is. And so far, so good. I'm loving this. So before I move on, because this is a topic that I could just continue on because it's so intriguing and one of the best things WWE has done in quite some time. Is there anything more you wanted to comment on this before we moved on?
Well, like, I'm just really intrigued specifically with the Seth Rollins thing, how they go, like, where they go with him as we approach WrestleMania. Because I know there's been some rumors now that Brock may actually be fighting KO at WrestleMania. And, like, I'm just wondering, like, do you think that, I'm not sure if you've touched on this in past shows, but do you think that CM Punk is an actual legitimate possibility for Seth at WrestleMania?
So I have touched on this a little bit. So here's what I mean. If you put a gun to my head, do I see CM Punk coming back for WrestleMania to face Seth Rollins? My answer would probably be no, but I would not say that very confidently. If we do indeed see a CM Punk return, I think it would probably be the very earliest the Rumble. Here's what I don't want, though. I don't want CM Punk entering the Rumble if he's not going to win it. You can't have a mega star like CM Punk enter the Rumble and then just get eliminated. The only way you could do that is if it is Seth Rollins who eliminates him, hence setting up a CM Punk and Seth Rollins match at WrestleMania. That is the only way you could do that. Because CM Punk would not win the Royal Rumble. It just doesn't make sense for CM Punk to win the Royal Rumble at this stage in his career. He doesn't want to go back full time. I know he wants to main event WrestleMania. It's the one thing he's always wanted to do, and I get it. But I think that's probably the one way it happens, if it happens, at the Rumble at the earliest. Could he come back at Fastlane or Roadblock or whatever the hell, interim pay-per-views they have before, or in between Rumble and Mania? He could, but I mean, would I love to see it? Hell yeah. I think that would create a mass amount of interest on social media. People would lose their minds. The internet would probably break. It would be the biggest news to come out of WWE in the last 5 to 10 years. Since Punk left, this would probably be the biggest news coming out of WWE. So, yeah, I would love to see it. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. And again, if it does happen, we need to see some signs of it at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and because I'm getting very nervously anxious as we approach the Rumble, because it seems like it's almost set in stone that Roman Reigns is going to win and therefore challenge The Fiend at WrestleMania for the Universal title. And I look at how, for the most part, how well the product has been lately, how good it's been. And I see, for me, the top two candidates would be either not Brock, what am I talking about? Drew or Kevin Owens to go on to face Brock at WrestleMania. And you can make a case for other guys as well. Daniel Bryan, he's never won the Royal Rumble. He would be a prime candidate. But then you still just have this lurking, dark cloud behind you that just knows they're going to pour cold water on all this good that they've done and make Roman Reigns predictably win the Rumble.
There's no, and here's the thing, that I truly believe, and right now, again, we're 4 weeks out from the Rumble, so things can change. But the way Roman Reigns has been booked over the last few months, and the fact he's been out of WrestleMania main event for a little while now, he's been out of the title picture for quite some time now, tells me this is the year of Roman Reigns in 2020. And I have that feeling. All signs point to it. All rumors point to it. And to have him win the Rumble, I don't think it will, again, I don't think he'll get massively booed, although it's going to depend on a couple of things, depending on who the last few people are in the ring. It's going to have to be all heels. It's going to have to be all heels versus Roman Reigns for Roman Reigns not to have a Philadelphia 2015 reboot. And what's going to happen is, even if they don't get a negative reaction for Roman Reigns at the Rumble, I think they are in a world of you-know-what come WrestleMania time, when The Fiend goes against Roman Reigns, which, again, all signs and all roads seem to be pointing to that. I am very, very interested to see, after all this apparent success and all the strides that they have made from the reaction standpoint of Roman Reigns not getting booed, I mean, lots of elements in there. He's been out of the title picture for a while, cancer overcomer, all the feel-good, stories, all those, all that positivity. Does it go all out the window when all of a sudden he's going against The Fiend, one of the most creative, one of the most innovative, most original characters WWE has had in the last 10 years, and have him in the ring against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in the main event for the championship, and all of a sudden the fans go, whoa, wait a minute. We've had the wool pulling over our eyes. Now I remember why I don't like Roman Reigns, and do they completely turn on Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania?
Yeah, and it's because I don't have so much of a qualm with him facing The Fiend at WrestleMania for the Universal title, because the more I look at the SmackDown roster, the more I see, they're doing the Daniel Bryan thing right now. The Miz isn't going to main event at WrestleMania with the Fiend. Maybe Roman Reigns is the right guy. And to WWE's credit, they've done a decent job of getting him over against the most hated guy in the company, Baron Corbin. But even if they want to go down that road, I would not want it to be him winning the Rumble, for the simple fact of he doesn't need it. And I've just seen too many Rumbles in recent years that the guy wins the Rumble, and it's really just to no avail. Okay, Seth, that catapulted him as a megastar in 2019. But the year before that, Shinsuke Nakamura, did he really get his career catapulted from it? The year before that, Randy Orton, did that really catapult his career? The year before that, Triple H won the Royal Rumble, which was for the WWE Championship. Like, I would just like to see the Rumble used, and you can call me just a nostalgia freak or whatever, or just used to the regular, comings of the match. But I think that they should go back to use the Rumble for what it's, stereotypically used for, to catapult a career. And that's why I bring up Drew McIntyre or Kevin Owens as prime guys to win it. Those are two guys who have never won the Rumble. They've never main evented WrestleMania. And those are two guys that you could be damn sure if either of them won the Rumble, the crowd would be fully behind it.
And yeah, so I would think that they should, again, if I was booking this, Kevin Owens would win the Royal Rumble. He just would. That's what I would do. Or hell, Drew McIntyre, who I need to see a championship on. I mean, he just deserves a championship. I need even a heel run out of him. But again, there is more than one road to the main event of WrestleMania because there are two championships at stake here, the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship. So if Roman Reigns doesn't win the Rumble, I won't be super surprised because there is obviously another road to take because there are two title belts. You can't have the winner of the Rumble challenge both. So I think Roman Reigns maybe doesn't win if this is the choice number 2 if he doesn't win the Rumble. And then you have Kevin Owens win. They have a feel-good moment as the winner of the Rumble, Kevin Owens, stands on the second rope, and the obligatory point at the WrestleMania sign as fireworks go off is the last scene we see before the Rumble goes off the air. I'm fine with that. And if Roman Reigns is the guy, and you know what? I think he probably is the guy to face The Fiend. I just am really very, very concerned for the creative perspective of the fans completely crapping all over Roman Reigns if you think that you've made all this progress and all of a sudden it goes up in smoke in one match. I think it could. But Kevin Owens, to me, should win the Royal Rumble. I'm fine with that. I'm interested to see, though, there's so many different things at stake here with returns in the shoot here with like Sheamus, right? So many rumors of Daniel Bryan maybe facing Sheamus at WrestleMania because we all know, let's face it, Daniel Bryan's going to lose to The Fiend at the Royal Rumble. I just don't see a way in which Daniel Bryan captures the Universal Championship and then goes to WrestleMania. Could it happen? Sure, but The Fiend to me he's a more prominent figure in WWE. Again, he's the most intriguing thing they've had in a decade. And with Sheamus on the horizon, I think he's going to return as a heel. Could he attack Daniel Bryan and cost him the match at the Royal Rumble? I think he possibly could. And maybe they have a WrestleMania 28 rematch where this time it's not 18 seconds. I mean, there's things that they can do to get Daniel Bryan to WrestleMania, but I just have that feeling that it's probably still going to be Roman Reigns winning this, but I don't know. There's so many now. My mind's going everywhere. You've got me thinking now.
Well, because I ideally don't want to see Roman Reigns versus The Fiend because it would just kill what you just said, all this work they've done building up The Fiend. But when I look at the SmackDown roster, I don't know another formidable opponent for him because obviously Sheamus, we're not sure what they're doing there, but what you brought up about Daniel Bryan would make sense. The Miz, obviously not. It seems like they've pulled the plug quite quickly here on the Shorty G experiment. So I just don't know another mid-card guy that could possibly go up against The Fiend on SmackDown. I suppose Braun Strowman, but if this past week's SmackDown was any telling sign, he's nothing more than a mid-card, somewhat comedy act right now. So I get that maybe there is no better option than Roman Reigns at the moment, but maybe they just kind of booked themselves into the corner here because ideally I think that Daniel Bryan would have been a prime candidate to go up against The Fiend at Mania and not just so soon at the Rumble.
Right, and that's what tells me that Daniel Bryan is not quite at that top tier that Roman Reigns is in the eyes of management, and he's just that next tier down, so we'll get through Daniel Bryan, and he will then face Roman Reigns. I mean, I just don't see any other way around it, but I would be very leery of him winning the Rumble, considering there's just so many bad memories around Roman Reigns winning the Royal Rumble. not just in the 2015 Royal Rumble, but in 2016 he didn't win it, but he was I think he was number 30, and WWE was almost trolling the fans that, oh my God, he's going to win it again. And I just don't think that's a wound you want to reopen if they want to, have the memory of all the reasons why the fans dislike him erased, and they should do that by not having him win the Rumble. But I just don't know. That's going to be a ballsy call by WWE if they go, you know what? I really believe that this fan support is authentic from the fans, that we've truly made strides, and the people booing him have seen the light, and we're gonna pull the trigger on him winning the Rumble. That is gonna be a ballsy call by WWE, because if it doesn't work, and all of a sudden he's standing on that rope pointing at the WrestleMania sign, showered in boos again, everything is for naught over this last year.
It's because I think the problem that WWE might find themselves in here is that the crowd is admittedly somewhat behind Roman Reigns. I think they like him as a character right now, but I think they just like him as a mid-tier, maybe upper mid-card babyface who's not in the title picture. And I don't think that the fans would have been so incredibly against him if he had been built up like this in the first place. But the problem here is like WWE might say, okay, well, now they're fully behind him. And to your point, misjudge it, thrust him back into the main event scene. And then they said, well, no, we don't want him in this role. We want him down the mid card. We want Daniel Bryan ahead of him. We want Kevin Owens ahead of him. And that's what I'm kind of scared as. And it's really tragic because you see what a simple heel turn can do for a guy like Seth, and how the crowd was legitimately going against him. And now, okay, they're booing him, but, it's not that go away heat. It's true heel heat. And I'm just worried with Roman Reigns that they've done all this good work, all this, good building of him because he's been, out of the main event picture and whatnot. And then they're just going to thrust him right back into that role. And we're going to be right back at square one.
And that's the key. You brought up the key here. Is we're all assuming that it's WWE keeping him babyface. And I don't even want to get down the road of turning him heel because I have ranted about that more than I should have ever ranted about it. I mean, I've talked about it for 5 years. And this is all under the assumption that they aren't going to do that because at this point I don't think they will. If they were to ever do that, I think he could be a top heel and a top heel for years. I really, really believe that, and I still believe that. And I really believe they're missing out big time money-wise on creating a heel Roman Reigns. But with the SmackDown babyface depth roster being so thin, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't. He's a cancer survivor. He's doing all these, charity visits of being a cancer survivor himself. It ain't going to happen, unfortunately. And WWE missed the boat big time on it. I just think that the fans are going to suddenly get a rewind. Oh yeah, that's why we don't like this guy. And yes, and I've said this too before, but I think it's worth bringing up that just because he hasn't been in the main event picture does not tell me, based on the programming, of where he's positioned on the show and how many replays of things that he's in that we get throughout the show, that he's not the focal point of the show just because he's not in the title picture. To me, I'm not that stupid to go, oh yeah, well he's not in the title picture, so I'm going to be a fool and go, yeah, WWE doesn't really want to, I don't think they see him as a champion anymore. No, replay after replay after replay of every segment that Roman Reigns is in is constantly woven throughout the show. So I don't want to hear about he's not the focal point of the show just because he doesn't have a belt on his shoulder.
Well, because it's smart booking on WWE's part. I really got to give them credit here on how they've really put Roman Reigns in a situation over the last 8 months or so where, you can't boo him. He went out, he had that little feud with Shane McMahon, and ultimately they put him beside The Undertaker, and no one's going to boo The Undertaker, so that got him cheers. Then they put him in the whodunit angle, and it ultimately wound up with him being alongside Daniel Bryan. And no one's going to cheer against Daniel Bryan when they went up against Rowan and Harper. All the way back last year, he had that Shield reunion against Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre on Raw. People love the Shield. And now, over the last couple months, he's been up against Baron Corbin, who's one of the first legitimate heels who hasn't gone go away heat, but legitimate hatred heat from the fans in quite some time. So over the last 12 months or so, pretty much ever since he returned from cancer, he's been booked very strongly by WWE, and they have made damn sure that he has been put in a position to be cheered, whether it be going up against a guy who the fans despise, or more times than not, aligning themselves with guys that the fans beloved.
Yes, the thing is, they have been walking on eggshells with Roman Reigns, though, and they have done an admittedly amazing job with the booking of his character, being very meticulous and careful about how they position him, what he says, who he faces, what situations he is, how to hide his weaknesses, and they've done a brilliant job of that, to the point where the people booing him are maybe mildly cheering him, or at least just sitting there, maybe clapping at the end of a match rather than booing him, because WWE has done a good job of all of these things. They've checked all the boxes and minimized the boos, and I applaud them for that. But the fact of the matter is, Roman Reigns still has major weaknesses when it comes to promos, right? I don't think in his entire career he has ever cut a jaw-dropping, go-home A-plus promo where you go, that guy's got it. He has never, ever done that. And that's a trait that I don't know how you don't have as a top babyface. And it's something I'm not saying is easy to do, but with that skill set not being there, how can you truly ever get the fans to get the fans behind him if he can't emotionally emote what he needs to, where the fans go, oh man, I really feel what he's saying. I'm getting behind this guy. He's never done it. And that's a huge weakness to have as a top babyface.
But it's also because, a lot of times, granted, top guys hit their initial characters right out of the park, but it's not a foreign concept for WWE to tinker with a guy's character as he came up. We saw with The Rock, the fans rejected his original character and he had to get repackaged. Stone Cold Steve Austin, to an extent, when he was the ringmaster, it wasn't clicking that much, and it wasn't until he dropped the John 3:16 thing after he won King of the Ring. Even Dean Ambrose really took on the lunatic fringe thing right away. But, John Cena adapted. And you see all these different guys who have adapted their characters as they came and went. A lot of people forget that Randy Orton had the legend killer gimmick, the cocky young guy from Evolution before he became, the Viper, Apex Predator kind of, shady heel who lurked in the background. And the point I'm going with this is that he's never adapted. You could argue he's the exact same guy that he was with the Shield. His character hasn't changed, his gear hasn't changed, his music hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the logo on his gear and the fact that he doesn't come out to the crowd anymore. And that's why, I really do like Roman Reigns and I really do want to cheer for him. But and when I say I like him, the guy seems like a good guy and his matches are usually entertaining. But it's just the whole character is just so damn cheesy. From Michael Cole screaming the big dog, or him punching the stage and fireworks coming out like it's the beginning of WrestleMania. It's too much. It's too much. It's not authentic. It doesn't feel real. And I still think that if for whatever reason they finally came to their senses and repackaged him as a heel or even as a babyface, but just a different style. He didn't have the too cool for school thing. He just fought in regular wrestling gear and not the tactical wear. But just anything for him to break away from what he debuted as could go a long way, and maybe that would translate into better promos. Because maybe he just can't live up to this character.
Yeah, I have said this exact argument for many years. I mean, 4 years ago, I remember talking about this exact thing, that nothing has changed from him other than those very minor things you said with the logo and where he comes out from the crowd. And I think it's that they look at this and go, well, we're in a safe zone with Roman. They know that he's a man of few words and he speaks with his actions. That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out for I suck at promos. That's what that means. And again, I'm not saying it's easy. It's extremely hard to do. And I'm understanding of that. But at the same time, don't tell me that it's a man of few words. I'm not stupid. Wrestling fans aren't stupid. Nobody believes that Roman Reigns can actually cut a promo that you'll feel from your guts and your heart. It's all very robotic. Somebody put it a great way one time. He's like a video game character. He's just very mechanical at times. Not in the ring. We all know he can put on great matches. And people think, and you'll hear wrestlers say this, that, he's great in the ring. Well, yeah, he's great in the ring. That's only one part of it. If I don't have any emotion towards your character, I'm not going to pay to see your character. I'm not going to react to your character. You need to bring me in one way or the other. And Roman Reigns is just like this guy stuck in time that just hasn't changed. His hair, nothing. I mean, I think his music is one of the worst things that he kept. His music, it's one of, if I was going to change one thing from Roman Reigns to get him more, quote, over as a babyface and connect with the audience, get rid of that music that just sounds like it's dum da dum dum. Like it's not exciting. It's very, like, I hear it and it's a Pavlovian reaction of just like, oh God. Like, because I have so much negative reaction or negative feelings towards his babyface character that is, when I hear the music, my brain immediately goes to, and I hear Michael Cole, and it's the same thing. There's nothing different. It's just wash, rinse, and repeat, rinse, and repeat. It's the same thing with Roman Reigns. They're just too scared to go outside the box and think they're going to F it up. I think that's what they have. They go, well, we've got him in a nice comfy place, the comfort zone, which is the kiss of death. Let's just keep him here, and nothing's going to change. And I think what we see is what we get right now with Roman.
And it's funny that you bring up the music, because I remember when the Shield first came out, and a lot of the draw to their whole look and their characters was that the music was badass, and I was a big fan of their music. I loved it, but when he kept it, it didn't fit him. And like you said, now it just sounds like it's a Debbie Downer. Like the initial intro to his song, it's a Debbie Downer. And it's too bad, because I've, for the most part, enjoyed his angle with Corbin, and I think a lot of that has to do with just how great Corbin has excelled in this role. But it's even like they've gone through such lengths to make you cheer for Roman that it's almost nonsensical, because I look at, let's just say, that Corbin always, no matter what, has 10 anonymous henchmen at his beck and call. Like, almost like an endless supply. Like, they came out, Miz and Daniel Bryan got rid of, I think, 4 of them, and then they panned to the backstage, and he has another 6 behind him. And it's never been explained why he has all this anonymous henchman. Why has Dolph Ziggler, a former world champion and one of the top WWE guys right now, inexplicably become his crony? And we've never heard an explanation from Ziggler or Rude before he got suspended why they're with Corbin. And it's not that I necessarily disagree with it, but just give me an explanation. Why does Corbin have all these guys? And furthermore, what's worse is I remember when Roman Reigns was kind of in cahoots with Mustafa Ali and Shorty G. There was a time there where those 3 were kind of fighting against Corbin and Rude and Ziggler. But now, almost like out of nowhere, those guys just aren't coming to help Roman Reigns anymore. And I know it's all, like, I know why they're doing it. They want you to feel sympathy for Roman Reigns when he got chained up and fed the dog food. You want him to feel sympathy when, he got beat down by almost 10 guys at TLC and Corbin won the match. But it's just, you're doing that so we cheer for Roman, because, how could you cheer against a guy getting mobbed by 10? But it just doesn't make sense how he was clearly aligned with Shorty G and Mustafa Ali, and he himself had come to make the save for them so many times that now they inexplicably turned their back on him. I get why they're doing it. I get that they want him to come off as, this may sound ironic, as the underdog, but it's just they're going through to such lengths to try and get you to cheer for Roman that it almost leaves plot holes in the story.
There's no question that the plot holes, think about this. They talk about how Roman Reigns is like a true locker room leader. I've heard the announcers say that. I've heard Corey Graves say that. And if he's such a locker room leader, why the hell is no one coming to his aid? Nobody. You pointed out 2 guys, Mustafa Ali One of them who, I mean, he's just kind of just mysteriously gone. He has no friends, it seems like, anyway, in storyline, that Roman Reigns has no friends whatsoever to come out and come to his aid against a 10-on-1 situation. And yet he's this beloved locker room leader backstage. And I'm with you. I get the fact of the psychological piece of this, where they're trying to garner sympathy for a guy getting beat down and those odds. Who can ever overcome that? Then you want to see Roman come back and get revenge. And I get it. And to some degree, it's worked. I mean, I want to see Corbin get his ass kicked. That's success in the storyline. But again, there's going to come a point where they can't protect him anymore, and they're going to have to put him in a situation that is not against Baron Corbin, where that program's about to fade out. I would assume that it's going to end at the Rumble, unless they're both in the Royal Rumble match, or maybe it'll be, they'll resolve their issues prior to that at the, SmackDown before Royal Rumble. I don't know. But eventually, it's not going to be Corbin versus Reigns anymore. Corbin versus Reigns is a very safe program for the Roman Reigns character. Again, what do they do when it's against somebody that is Daniel Bryan or against The Fiend, which seems to be the next candidate in place here? And that's the true test to me, and I'm very interested to see it. And I know I'm talking in circles here, but anything else before we move on this Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin? Which, by the way, Baron Corbin, I got to give him credit. This whole King of the Ring thing, I said that the tournament sounded like a big deal. They needed to make it a big deal. And Baron Corbin has taken and run with it. And I got to give credit for all the things we're kind of giving WWE crap for. The Corbin character has really taken off, I think, on a way that's not really go away heat. It's heat that you just want to see someone kick his ass. That's a positive. So that's just a little bit of a silver lining in this whole thing.
Yeah, 100%. I've been a Corbin fan since he came up in 2016 when he had the whole biker gimmick going on, when he had the different music and he had the long hair. And then it seemed like they were going to push him. He won the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2017, and then I heard something that maybe he ruffled some feathers backstage and they made him lose his cash-in opportunity. And then I didn't like him when he was the whole Constable thing. But he's really grown, and now I love Baron Corbin again. You could tell that he's a raw talent. He's a former guy. I think he played in the NFL for a short period. You could tell he's he's a natural athlete, and he has just completely knocked this out of the park. I found that early in his career, even when he was the Constable and later on the Raw GM, I found that his promos were a bit awkward, but he has really just taken off here. And especially given the fact that obviously The Fiend is the top quote-unquote heel on SmackDown, but he's kind of gotten the Brock Lesnar effect of he only shows up at opportune times. Baron Corbin has pretty much been the top heel on SmackDown, and he has single-handedly kept his feud with Roman Reigns interesting because, even that, I really haven't heard Roman Reigns talk during this angle. It's mostly been Baron Corbin. He's pretty much carried it by himself. I would like to see him potentially get an Intercontinental Championship run here. I think it's kind of fading away into obscurity with Shinsuke Nakamura. And I would actually also like to touch on that whole faction with Sami as well. But I think that Corbin's done an excellent job here, and I'm hoping that he doesn't fade off into obscurity after the Roman Reigns angle.
I'm with you. I do too. And we all know Roman's going to conquer him, especially if they're getting Roman ready for The Fiend. Roman has to go over in this program. And he will. There's no question about it. I feel safe about putting money on that one. But yeah, I hope it's not just Corbin being served up as a sacrificial lamb for Roman Reigns as just a stepping stone, and then Corbin goes back into obscurity. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, from everything I see and hear and read, Vince McMahon loves the Corbin character. Corbin gets a lot of TV time. He's easily their top heel. He has grown exponentially over the last year. This whole king persona, this self-appointed and this king that he believes he is, it's great. I mean, you could almost say, and again, it's not as big of a sample size yet, but when Booker T became King of the Ring and he became King Booker and all that, like that, I love that with King Booker. I think that he's on the same path to success as what that did for Booker T. So, but yeah, if you want to touch on the Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura, like that whole faction, before I give my thoughts, what do you think about that whole thing? I mean, I'll reserve my thoughts for right now.
Well, I feel like Sami Zayn has really found his niche on the roster, and I've said this in the past that, like, you know what, if the only way Sami Zayn could be consistent television each and every week is as a heel mouthpiece, then great, because not every guy can be a world champion. I would like to see him wrestle a bit more, maybe have a tag team with one of them, but he did wrestle this week, so that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I don't think Nakamura is the guy right now, especially that he's only fighting, it seems, in tandem with Cesaro as of late to be the Intercontinental Champion. You know, that's a belt that it kind of is at times the top belt on SmackDown, and it seems like on both Raw and SmackDown they're trying to make the world titles feel way more valuable, that the champions don't fight each and every week. But I don't mind that. I don't, because it does make it feel more special. But at the same time, if that belt isn't going to be showcased, you need the second tier belt too. You know, how many times have we seen the U.S. title main event Raw over the last number of months? And it's changed hands quite a few times. And I like that. I like when they value the titles. But Shinsuke, like, I really don't remember a feud he's had of late that centered around the Intercontinental Championship. It's been focused around Sami Zayn, and he's been aligned with Cesaro. And as for Cesaro, I really want to like him. And like we talked about how in-ring ability isn't the end-all be-all, and he's a prime example. I really wish they would like stick with one damn look with him for more than 6 months at a time. Like, he's changed his look, I think, 3 times since he came back after the separation of the bar. And, you know, he had the gear, that blue and red gear, where he kind of had a jumpsuit, and now, like, he's almost wearing a leather jacket to the ring with these, like, tight, short pants with, like, jogging shoes, and Cesaro has almost made it like he's just a glorified jobber in my mind, that you know he's going to put on a 5-star match, but he ultimately will lose because he doesn't have a lot of clout. And while I don't mind him being showcased each and every week, I don't think he should be saddled beside a guy like Nakamura who's holding the title.
Wow, a lot of points there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to overload you there.
No. So I'll just take it a little bit piece by piece. So Cesaro, I'll start with the last thing you said. Yes, he has changed his look to the point of we don't know what he is. We've said that before. I don't think he knows who he is in terms of a wrestling character that you can turn up to 10 and make money with. He's morphed himself from James Bond to the bar to this electronic techno music kind of, you know, like light show that he does for his entrance. We've seen him in all variations. His in-ring style hasn't changed. His entrance, his character, his connection with the audience, it just isn't there. We all know he's great in the ring, and he brings you into the match. And so I guess his story's told in the ring. WWE knows that he can go with anybody and make anybody look good, and that's an awesome trait to have. He's a great hand, as they would say, but he has not reached that top spot. I don't know if he ever will, and it's a damn shame considering the ability he has. So there's still time left, but Father Time, I think, is going to be his enemy, and I don't know if he knows what to do. If WWE knows, they just go, put a generically cool entrance out there, and he'll do his talking in the ring. I mean, that kind of seems what they're doing with him. Shinsuke as Intercontinental Champion, yeah, he aligned himself with Sami Zayn. You and I both were behind that, and I'm still behind it. And I think Sami Zayn as the mouthpiece is awesome, although it's been tamed back a bit. He is an amazingly great, gifted, obnoxious heel character that you want to see someone kick his ass. That's great. That's what I want. And I think it saved Shinsuke's career to some degree to be aligned with Sami Zayn. It was a great pairing. I think they've overachieved what many people thought they could. But again, the damage here, the real victim here is the Intercontinental Championship, because it's feeling like a prop. You forget that he's Intercontinental Champion. You just go, oh, that's right, yeah. And it looks like just, a belt on him, and you forget the importance and meaning and lineage of that belt. It's just hanging out there. And I would assume at some point he's going to drop it. Typically when they do this and someone's just hanging onto a belt, the next defense they have is typically going to be the loss. I would not be surprised if the next title defense Shinsuke has is actually going to be dropping the Intercontinental Championship, which I don't want to see, but I also don't want to see the Intercontinental Championship value decrease. So if it has to come at a Shinsuke loss to reserve the value of the Intercontinental Championship, that's fine. I don't know who he could drop it to. I don't know at this point. But that to me is what the signal is pointing to, is a Shinsuke Nakamura loss. But yeah, I'm liking this trio. I'm really liking Sami Zayn, who is the glue for all of this. I just don't know what the end game is.
Yeah, and that's it. Like they don't really have a direction, and like I don't mind, mid-card heel factions. I find them entertaining. Like I love the OC as well, but like you need someone like. You need the titles to have a clear direction. And I just feel the Intercontinental Championship isn't having it. And you saw it on Raw that, even when AJ was the US champion, he was defending it left, right, and center. And then, maybe it got a bit stale with him, so they put it on Ray. And I like Shinsuke, and I really like that they finally given him an extended run with the Intercontinental Championship. But if he's just going to be a part of this random heel faction that just, pisses off everyone, you can't just have him carrying around the Intercontinental Championship and no one really going after it. I think they've hinted at Braun Strowman potentially going after him. I think that he was part of that 3-on-3 match with the New Day, who faced Sami Zayn, Shinsuke, and Cesaro. So, it pains me to say, because I remember when they aligned these two, and we both just talked about it, how much we equally loved it. But it's just, I still do like it. I like Sammy being the mouthpiece for these guys. They're two guys who were held back by their promo skills. So, but if they do want to continue this, they just have to, throw the Intercontinental Championship into of a more predominant role. And I just use Raw as an example, because on Raw, I think they've done a masterful job, especially now that Brock is once again the absentee champion, that they've done a masterful job of keeping that U.S. title relevant, main eventing shows. It feels like it gets defended bi-weekly on Raw, and I just wish they would do the same with the Intercontinental Championship on SmackDown.
I wish they would too. Arguably, it has, you could make an argument, easily, that it's a more valuable championship than the Universal Championship, which was made out of thin air because of a brand split. So I think that, to me, is the most valuable championship on SmackDown. I really believe that. And yeah, The Fiend has the Universal Championship, and it's positioned as the top belt, but arguably, with the people that have held that belt and the things that it's done for careers, Shinsuke has the most valuable belt in that respect on the entire show. So yeah, I think they either need to start showcasing it, put Shinsuke in a more prominent position, or just get it the hell off of him so that it can be given to somebody that can actually showcase it. And I'm for the former. I want Shinsuke to be positioned. I love this mouthpiece of Sami Zayn, how obnoxious he is, especially during the entrance of Shinsuke. It makes me laugh every single time. He's so obnoxious with his music. It's awesome. I love what this pairing has done. But the Intercontinental Championship, it's almost as if they go, oh, that's right, he's got the belt. What do we do with it? I don't like that feeling. So speaking, as you brought up, of Braun Strowman, and this week on SmackDown, he wins the match, right? And yet, at the end of this match, we have Braun Strowman decide that he needs to, for whatever reason, break out the dancing skills. I'm gonna take a pause because I feel myself going on a rant, but maybe you have a more positive look at this as just entertainment. What did you think about this quick little segment?
No, nothing positive from it, to be honest.
Crap.
Because I just remember what he was a year ago, and I remember going to a house show in Ottawa, which is not even 2 hours away from where I live, and the main event was him versus Corbin, and he was so over. Arguably the most over guy in the company at that time. And it's just they poured such cold water on it with that stupidity with the Saturday Night Live guys, and just have failed to do anything with him ever since. It felt like they were going somewhere with him at the end of the summer with Seth Rollins when he won the tag team titles, and then faced him at Clash of Champions. But it's just I don't know what it is with Braun Strowman, because clearly they like him. The crowd is so behind him. But it's like they're so scared to actually just put the rocket ship to him and, send him off on a serious run. And it seems like they oftentimes with Strowman, like when all else fails, relate back to comedy. And it's been like this for a while. We even saw it at WrestleMania 2 years ago with the whole Nicholas thing when he won the tag team titles with the 8-year-old, where he is funny. He does have things that are organically funny when he does, the tilt-a-whirl and runs around the ring or just whatever. But it's like if you don't want to position him as a true main eventer, fine, I get it. The Big Show was never a true main event guy, but you got to give him some serious singles role. Like I remember in 2003, 2004, the Big Show had this dominant run as the heel U.S. champion and was eventually conquered by John Cena at WrestleMania 20. And it's just little things like that where like if you don't want to position him as the top tier guy, that's fine. I just said it before. Not everyone could be that. I think Braun has the potential to be that. But if not, you can make him as an Intercontinental Champion or even just in a serious, meaningful feud. Like, except for his initial feud with Roman Reigns way back in 2016, it's hard for me to actually think of a feud of substance that Strowman has had that he hasn't been either a throw-in guy or just part of a bigger picture, like when he teamed up with Ziggler or McIntyre to go against the Shield. They just need to really zero in on him in a legitimate feud, preferably with a title, but they just have to knock off this nonsense of always going back to comedy with him.
It's so ironic they call him the monster among men, and yet he's the one, twisting his hips on SmackDown. I mean, it is the most contradictory statement I've heard. That WWE loves their nicknames. They tout their nicknames, as if they don't even have real names. And I get it; it's marketing; they're a business. But when you have the monster among men who likes to talk really scary, and then all of a sudden he's doing these hip swirls, it reminded me. It reminded me of, I don't know if you remember Shokishi, when Big Show didn't really have a direction. Big Show was kind of lost in the sauce on Raw. I think it was around 2000. And Big Show was floating out there, and they decided to see what he was with comedy, and he comes out and he was Shokishi, meaning he was playing on Rikishi's gimmick, coming out there in like a big thong. It was awful for his character, and you've seen that throughout Big Show's career. So when I see Braun Strowman doing this stuff, it really just takes away from all this monster among men stuff when he's acting like a complete buffoon. This should have been something to me that was done after the cameras went off. Maybe in a dark match. Fine, you want to have a little fun with the local crowd, I don't care. But I don't want you promoting it to the millions of people that look at this guy as a legitimate top contender for a championship and do this kind of stuff. It's almost as if Vince sees comedy and goes, you should do that out in there on the ring, pal. I mean, he sees comedy and he runs with it. And I just, Vince McMahon's sense of humor is frozen at a 14-year-old level. He has not grown from his sense of humor. And you see it with Otis, who suddenly is this guy that wears, oh, hold on, my dog's barking. You see this with Otis, who is a guy that I think could be a top guy one day, and he's in a tag team that is arguably one of the more over tag teams on SmackDown, and yet he's in there doing comedy segments with cake and food, and he's this lovable loser with Mandy Rose. He's doing all these things that just I don't know why Vince McMahon does these things, and you're seeing it with Braun Strowman, as you mentioned, the Saturday Night Live guys, Tyson Fury. He's in all these like weird kind of sideshows that it's not a legitimate program, and I don't know if they just, like you said, maybe they don't know what to do with him. But to me, they're missing out on what they could be doing. And I even remember what they did with him. He was supposed to face Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship last year, and he ended up losing the opportunity the week before because he flipped Vince McMahon's limo and he got taken out. I mean, so he hasn't been in a real program, and I can't even remember how long. But again, I'm going to end my rant there. But this segment to me, it's WWE at its worst. Like when I see this, I go, I just sigh and I roll my eyes. And I'm just like, why? Why? Just because he can do comedy doesn't mean he should. Just because you can do things doesn't mean that you should, because it's entertaining in the moment. The value and sacrifice that you are going to be giving up for that one moment of getting a couple kids to laugh, for the sacrifice of basically taking a hit on your own character, is not worth it. So, end rant.
Well, it's because, like, I remember when they did this latest rendition of the brand split, which I have to give them credit. They've really stuck to it, albeit it's only been 2.5 months or whatever. And I've liked the way that they divided the rosters. And I feel like the product has been exceptionally better since then. But when I looked at the rosters, I said, man, SmackDown got the better shaft of this. And this was including when after Brock went back to Raw. But as it's gone on, you've seen the difference in the creative. And what I mean by that is, like, you look at the Monday Night Raw roster and how it's being written, is that you see that even all the programs are kind of intertwining right now. Like, you've seen Seth get involved with Kevin Owens and Ray and with Samoa Joe now. And then you get an underlining story of Randy Orton and the OC. And then Rey Mysterio's kind of tied into that too. Viking Raiders have been linked with that as well, with their recent beef with the OC. And it seems like with how they've written on Raw is that they're constantly setting themselves up for the next thing. McIntyre's been intertwined with Randy as of late. And you constantly see all these different avenues where they could go with Monday Night Raw. And I really feel like it's been excellent, even with the women. But then you look at SmackDown, and while I don't hate the stories right now on SmackDown, it's like you don't really know where else they're going to go with it, which I suppose isn't a bad thing, but it just feels like, okay, well, Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns, well, where's Baron Corbin going after that? Okay, well, now that The Miz has lost his opportunity against The Fiend, where's The Miz going to go? And, Daniel Bryan, where's he going to go? Maybe against Sheamus. But I just felt like the writing on Raw has been a lot better, that they've set themselves up to justify the future storylines after the Royal Rumble and leading into WrestleMania.
There's no question, you're right, that the Monday Night Raw story, like as we started the show off saying, the really great things about Monday Night Raw, it seems to have turned a corner and consistently turned a corner. That's the key. Not just, as we've seen in so many years past, good show, bad show, good show, bad show. It's been like I said, good show, average, great show, good show, okay show. Like, they have been many more thumbs up shows in the last few months than there have been thumbs down shows, and that's the key, is consistency. It's interesting, though, that this mega billion-dollar deal that they have with Fox, yet they have really kind of just kept it status quo in terms of the show quality of SmackDown since the debut episode of SmackDown, which we all knew was going to be star-studded, with The Rock returning and Brock Lesnar winning the championship in 8 seconds. And, outside of that initial show, how are they going to present SmackDown? And to me, it's been kind of just business as usual. And that's not good if you're on a network that is probably demanding a minimum number of ratings every single month, quarter, whatever it may be. And yet USA Network, the home of Monday Night Raw, has been the better show for many months now. And this deal with Fox is done, and it's in ink. And, there's obviously probably stipulations, as I said, with ratings that have to be met and adhered to on a quarterly basis. But yet Monday Night Raw is consistently better. So you're right. I'm okay with things not knowing where they're going, or not. Oh, I don't want to always know the answer. It's nice to not know, because unpredictability can be a good thing. The thing is, though, the difference is the unpredictability is you're not confident that they even know where they're going. It's not as if you feel you're being set up for, what's next? I can't wait. It's, I don't think you know where we're going, so we're just in a holding pattern. There's a difference of like excited unpredictability and kind of hesitant, somewhat pessimistic unpredictability. And that's where I kind of feel like we're at with SmackDown. I'm not crapping on the show in general. It just feels like it doesn't have a true direction, like a solid, exciting storyline, a main storyline being woven throughout the show. Of course, other than, you could argue, Daniel Bryan and The Fiend and Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns, those seem to be the top two. I think that nobody would dispute that. But there's something missing from SmackDown, and I don't know if it's a lack of star power or what. Yeah,
because the SmackDown, it's like I said, I really like their roster, but there are just some things that it's almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot. Like, Dolph Ziggler just being used as the inexplicable crony to Baron Corbin. And like, although we may not like it on Raw, and I know you've been really against this angle, but the simple angle of like Lana versus Lashley, and with, not Lana versus Lashley, but them versus Rusev, where like, I haven't been the biggest fan of it, but at least they found a way to use these guys almost week to week and keep them relevant. And that's why I haven't been so bullish on on the story as a lot of people have, because I've just enjoyed the fact that they're using Rusev and using Lashley. Now, obviously, the execution could be better, but hey, kudos to Paul Heyman and who's ever steering the ship on Raw that, unlike on SmackDown, they're using guys who would have otherwise been lost in obscurity. And I actually wanted to run this by you, Matt, because you remember the whole like Aiden English angle with Rusev all those years ago, right?
Sure, that started Rusev Day, yeah.
Like, this is just a thought with me, because I feel as though the biggest problem with this whole storyline has not so much been the writing. Obviously, that has been, less than on par at times, but I feel like it's often been the execution of Lana and Rusev. And a way that I think that they could just completely gain everyone's attention on this and get everyone behind it, because there's been a fair amount of backing from the crowd on this angle, which is kind of shocking. But like, why not just bring back Aiden English to align himself with Rusev?
I would love that. I think because he is really the originator of the Rusev Day. When you hear about Rusev Day, having Aiden English come out and I remember when that first started to catch on, I said, this is going to be big. This is hilarious. And I loved what they did. And Aiden English with his vocals really emphasized Rusev Day, and it just fit, and the crowd would sing along. I think that could be very beneficial to Rusev post this whole Bobby Lashley, Lana, Rusev divorce and weird hot boyfriend thing. And again, when you say I'm against it, you're right. I'm against it to the extent that it's just there are so many plot holes. Yes, but Lana and Rusev, I think Lana more than Rusev is to blame for the execution of this. And it's just, maybe it's the fact that Lana's never been in this position before, and she's never been prominently featured like this, and she's never had to speak as much as she's had to speak in front of a live audience on national television as much as she has until now. So I'm sympathetic to that. I get it. It's not easy, and she's just got shot into this, and boom, she's off to the races. But I mean, the way she delivers some of her promos, it's not great. You got me pregnant. Oh, you just want sex. A lot of it didn't make sense. The writing wasn't great. The execution on Lana's part especially wasn't great. Rusev has been okay. Again, this is not the worst thing in the world, and some people love this part of the sports entertainment-y stuff on a wrestling show. It's just not my taste. It doesn't mean I'll turn the channel. I'll watch it because it's like watching trash TV in a PG environment, so I'll watch it. I don't hate it. It's just not my cup of tea, especially when it's not executed well.
Yeah, and it's because I respected where they were going with it, and even throughout this, I just think a lot of it has been the execution, and it has also been a lot on, like, why are they still fighting about this, like, and because if Rusev's over Lana, then what's the big deal? And I've just really appreciated that they've used these two guys, because I've always liked Rusev. Lashley, I'm not like the biggest fan of Lashley, but he should be utilized. He's a good worker. He's a good talent. And I just think that their heads were in the right places. And I think a lot of it just lies on Lana and Rusev to an extent, because even Rusev at times, like, you don't really know his vantage point a lot of the times. Like, he's laughing a lot and I don't really get it. And that's where, like, I kind of thought of Aiden English and just the massive pop that, they would surely garner from that if he were to, clear his voice before he starts introducing Rusev. But it's just, at least on Raw, like, there isn't a guy on Monday Night Raw right now, aside from maybe Drew McIntyre, where I could say, like, man, he's really underutilized. And I've just respected that about the product. While on SmackDown, that's kind of been the theme of the show for about a month right now.
You're right. Look, I mean, these two guys would not have been probably doing a whole lot had it not been for this divorce angle. And this is right up Vince McMahon's alley. He loves the scandalous stuff. And whatever. It's Vince McMahon's version of professional wrestling. I get it. And yes, Rusev at times has been a little goofy when he shouldn't be, and he's angry when he shouldn't, and he's smiling maybe when he shouldn't or should be. It's kind of weird with the emotions that they've been showing, and he's okay with it, but he's not. And then Lana's making out with Lashley for weeks and weeks and weeks, and he's depressed, but then all of a sudden he's like, well, you know what, screw it. And he's trying to get Lana back, but then he isn't. It just is all over the damn place. And look, again, I'll still watch. We have the wedding coming up on tomorrow night, so I'm sure Rusev will interfere in some respect there. But to answer your question in short, yes, Aiden English coming back to pair with Rusev, I think, yeah, that would be a massive pop. People would love it, especially if you just have Aiden English come out at the very beginning and he's like, like, and does his thing. People would lose it. And that would be a great way for Rusev post this whole nonsense with Lana and Lashley to get some steam going and not just end it. And okay, he beats Lashley and gets his revenge and, happily ever after. So before we close things out, and I just want to ask you, on the women's side of things, we haven't really touched on the women on either brand. What are your thoughts on what's going on with Bayley, really Bayley, who has now reached the point of combined days of 217 days as the SmackDown Women's Champion, surpassing Becky Lynch, and just generally what you think about her as a whole in her heel turn and how she's doing currently, and really Becky Lynch and her wanting to face Asuka. She needs to face Asuka. What are your thoughts on what's going on here with the women on both brands?
Well, the thing with Asuka and Becky, I like that they revisited it because it was something that it was going on SmackDown, but like they never addressed it after last year's Royal Rumble when Asuka beat her to retain the SmackDown Women's title. And I like that they're like acknowledging how big of an asset that Asuka is, how good of a talent she is, not just ignoring the fact that she did get the best of a lot of these top women. I like that they've toned down Becky Lynch a lot. Like it felt like for months there in the summer, like she was just being shoved down our throats relentlessly. They've toned her back a lot in the past couple weeks, and it's actually made me get back like more behind her again, as opposed to in the summer where I was just fed up with anything to do with her. So again, just really good writing on the point of Monday Night Raw. I think it was just excellent booking from their standpoint. I'm looking forward to this match. And on SmackDown, I like what they've done with Bayley. The one thing with Bayley, I feel as though like I've kind of fed up with the whole Sasha Banks thing because it feels like a lot of times it's more about Sasha Banks and then Bayley just does the fighting. And you don't really know what Bayley's thinking. And perhaps that's what they're going for, that Bayley's the champ and she has like kind of like a mouthpiece and someone that you have to go before getting to her. So from that respect, maybe it's not the end of the world, but I like Bayley as a heel. She's great in the ring, but I would just like to hear a bit more from her as opposed to it always being Sasha Banks. Like we saw it with Lacey Evans, who I love the fact that they turned her babyface. I feel like it suits her better. And just on a side note, I feel like WWE's done a really good job of that recently, of like acknowledging if a character is stale as either a babyface or a heel and turning them. And we've seen that with Lacey Evans, where it's worked really well. She's probably my favorite women's wrestler as of this moment. But even that, it's more of a feud building with Sasha Banks, like we saw with her daughter, that exchange last week. But you know that the end goal here is for her to challenge Bayley for the women's title. So that's the one thing on SmackDown, which kind of has been a theme with me throughout this show, that I've been critical of SmackDown, that I like the women's wrestlers in that storyline with Lacey and Bayley, but I need more from Bayley.
Yes, Bayley is, I was clamoring for, we all were saying, hey, turn her heel. We're tired of seeing a 34-year-old woman with a side ponytail pretending she's still 18. I was sick of it. It was too feel good, too warm, too cuddly. Turn the damn girl. And they did. And we loved it. And she was hot, just like Sasha was hot when she returned as a heel and changed her wig from pink to blue. Everybody loved it. And since that time, it's been just there's no follow through. I've said this for weeks and weeks and weeks. Bayley may be the longest combined SmackDown Women's Champion of all time, but you don't remember that. You don't think about that. You forget she's champion. It feels like she's kind of Shinsuke in a way. And I don't like that. I want to know that she's champion and what this belt means to her, and she'll do anything to keep hold on to it, and she'll whatever. And that's not how I feel with Bayley. And I want the follow through. I want the follow up. I want her to be doing dastardly things, be a total you know what. I need her to remind me and fill that hate tank every week. And it's just, I look at her and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot she's got a short haircut, and Elias likes to make fun of it with his guitar and all this stuff. But they don't give her any mic time, just like they don't give Sasha Banks any mic time. And I just don't know, if you're going to turn someone heel of that magnitude, and same with Sasha, and there's just no plan, no follow through, and they just go, well, it's a big turn, people will love it, and it'll be figured out along the way. That's how it felt like it was written, and I don't like that. These two talents they've got so much potential as heels, and it's just being kind of just warmed over. They think that just turning them is enough, and I don't like that. But yes, Lacey Evans turning face, it's an interesting role with her as a babyface, because you're so trained to dislike her as the sassy Southern belle, this arrogant, well-dressed Southern girl wannabe that you think she's better than all of us nasties, and then turning her babyface. It is a bit of a jarring turn, but I'm fine with it. I'm learning to like her character more, and I know it's a process, bringing her daughter in to gain sympathy, relating to all the moms and dads out there. I mean, they're trying to use just Psychology 101, and I get it, and yeah, it's transparent, but it's working slowly. But there's not a lot of fire on the women's side. It's just Lacey Evans and Sasha and Bayley and everyone else. Yes, you have Carmella. She's starting to gain momentum. And I think Carmella is someone to watch in 2020. If I was going to put my watch on somebody to keep an eye on, it would be Carmella, because she's gotten a couple of wins the last few weeks, and I think that they're positioning her to maybe move up into that main event spot and maybe challenge Bayley, who would be a fresh opponent for Bayley. So I'm fine with that too. On the Raw side, Becky Lynch and Asuka, who doesn't want to see this? It is the match that I have. When Becky Lynch lost to Asuka before she main evented WrestleMania, I said, why? Why the hell would they have Asuka beat Becky Lynch and then have Becky go into the main event of WrestleMania, and she's supposed to be this person that can overtake Ronda Rousey? It just made no sense. No sense at all, but I'm glad they're revisiting it. I'm glad Becky's acknowledging that she needs this. That's what I like. I like that she's saying she needs this. I'm looking forward to it. Whenever these two lock up, which is presumably the Royal Rumble, this could be a show stealer. It really could. It has the potential to be.
Well, they stole the show last year, so it'd be fitting if they do it for the second consecutive year at the Royal Rumble. I think with SmackDown, again, it just seems like a reoccurring theme with SmackDown, where they have the talent, they just don't really know what to do with them. They still have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross just kind of floating out there, and I don't really know what Alexa Bliss's, her health situation is right now, but I keep waiting for her to maybe come back and have a full-on babyface run as a singles competitor, maybe go up against Bayley. That would be my ideal choice for her, for a WrestleMania bout. But on the Raw side, I just feel like Raw has really done the best possible options for a lot of the superstars. And we saw it, how they intertwined again, the women's tag team championships with Becky, and now they're revisiting that. And then just a subtle thing that they did recently when they turned Randy Orton into a babyface. And I thought that is just such a subtle thing, but you recognize the atmosphere and you read the room, because at this stage in his career, don't get me wrong, historically Randy Orton is a much better heel than a babyface. But right now, as soon as Randy Orton hits the RKO, people pop and he's a babyface. So at this point, and he kind of is a legacy star, you might as well just keep him as a babyface, go up against AJ Styles, who he never really had a true feud with. yeah, they fought at WrestleMania this past year, but that was more of just a throw in together because they didn't know what to do with either guy. But it's just been this reoccurring positive on Raw where like they read the room, it seems like they know what the fans want to see and they execute on it. And I just haven't been able to say the same about SmackDown right now.
No, you haven't. And not that SmackDown's been awful. It's just when you have Raw so much better, it feels like SmackDown isn't holding up its end. And yeah, I'm with you on Randy Orton too. Randy Orton is a legacy star. He's a guy that I don't care what he's doing. Immediately when he hits the RKO, everyone loves it. I mean, I don't care what the program is, how dastardly he is, how evil he is. People love the RKO. You're never going to change that. And so unless, short of him changing his finish, maybe back to like the kick to the head, which I don't think is going to happen, I think that Randy Orton is forever going to be a babyface with that finish. It's crazy that a finishing maneuver can actually change the direction of a character, and that's what Randy Orton has done. And yeah, he's good. He's great in the ring when he wants to be. He's so good that he doesn't even have to try in the ring. That's the way I feel with Randy Orton. And him and AJ Styles, that's another potential show stealer too. These two guys are, I mean, how many decades of experience between the two of them? There's a lot of potential there at the Royal Rumble too. So I'm excited for that program. As you said, Raw just feels smoother. Even though it's 3 hours, it doesn't feel like 3 hours as much anymore. They've got a lot going for it. Easy to follow storylines. AOP and Seth. Becky and Asuka revisiting that program. That makes a lot of sense. Randy Orton, AJ. Samoa Joe now back in the mix. There's a lot of great stuff going on Raw. And with SmackDown, it's just kind of like ho-hum, it feels like at times. And it feels like they're just kind of in a holding pattern on SmackDown for something. I feel like they're just waiting for something on SmackDown. So anything else you wanted to add to our conversation?
Well, just before we close it out, I don't think we'll be talking again before the Rumble, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Let me see. Well, no, I think, hang on. Hold on, let me see here. So, I'll do 3 weeks out. That'd be January 5th, then January 12th, and then the 19th. So, yeah, we will be talking just before, well, it'll be the week of the Royal Rumble. So, it'll be, okay. We'll have one more SmackDown and one more Raw to go before the Rumble, but it'll be, the week before.
Oh, okay, perfect. Because I heard a show that you did with Ashley, and I think maybe you guys projected that she would be there before me. But I was gonna give your early prediction for the Rumble, but I guess maybe not if we're gonna be talking before then.
Yeah, no, we'll be no. It's funny. I did predict, or I looked at that projection out with Ashley. She will be on the official prediction show, but you'll be on the pre-prediction show. But so yes, to answer your question, I don't want to give any predictions out because I don't feel like I'm informed enough on the storyline. So on either Saturday the 18th or Sunday the 19th, whichever day that we record, I will give you my thoughts then. How about that?
All right, sounds like a deal to
me. Awesome. Well, before we close things out, Anthony, let everyone know again where they can find you if they were so inclined to talk to you about wrestling or hockey.
You can find me on Twitter at @DeMarco25.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, it's always a joy to talk to you. We will be back together in a few weeks, and it'll be Rumble week the next time we talk. So I'm really excited for it because it'll be officially WrestleMania season the next time we talk.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it, Matt. Talk then.
All right. Take care.